Wakaba Ishiki is not a small woman. She is surprisingly tall, and her blunt bob frames a surprisingly pretty face. She's young to be a mother of a 13-year-old, and she's kept herself well, despite obviously not caring much for it. She's currently frowning hard, though, at the select photos that he had chosen to print from yesterday, containing information that he thought would help his case against Shido. I assume Shido asked you for some of your hypothesis and research questions a few days ago, Akechi is saying now, leaning over the juice he had ordered when the waiter came. You were doomed the moment you did so, as you will be the only one who can both suspect and somewhat prove that Shido's future crimes in the metaverse are related to him. Wakaba finishes scanning his photos quickly, and she brings her hand to massage the bridge of her nose. Kid, Wakaba says, you come here claiming that one of my most major sponsors is planning to kill me, but all I see in these photos are his training plans for you. It's just like, she squints, have X enter the metaverse how many times? Side effects. Akechi interrupts, pointing at the edge of the page. And when you look at the bottom, he's highlighted your hypothesis that the actions in the metacognitive world may have a feedback loop to reality. There's even a list of actions he wants me to take against the shadows of people. Conversation, interrogation, violence. It's all there. Akechi straightens his back, keeping his smile pleasant. No matter how much you appreciate Shido, Ishiki-san, you must realize that he's not the most upright of politicians. A loud chorus of shouts breaks their conversation, as some of the guys outside chant for one of their friends to drink, 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 drink. Loud cheers follow as someone obviously does so, and Wakaba grimaces at the noise. He's mentioned he's gunning for election before. Wakaba allows for their ears to stop ringing, and Akechi inclines his head. And the only reason he's interested in me is because of the potentials the metaverse holds for him and his election. Potentials. Like information, interrogation, and violence in a parallel world without justice except their own. It's obvious what Akechi's implying. The only few people who know about the full details of Shido and Akechi's arrangement are the two of them. But Wakaba is a third party supplying her research to Shido because of his sponsorship. In the future, Wakaba will see her hypothesis come to life as various members of Shido's political opponents start having breakdowns from stress, put two and two together, and realize that she's become an accomplice for serial murders. Then, she'll realize the full extent of why Shido had invested so much into her, and how her worth was now over. She would realize that she'll be next, furiously research the mental breakdowns in an attempt to overthrow Shido first, tell the threat to her life to Sojiro Sakura, and ultimately throw herself into traffic and die, without anyone knowing it was murder. Looking at it subjectively, it's quite a tragic fate. Anyone would want to avoid this, surely. But Wakaba shakes her head, brows twisted in doubt. A scientist, through and through. Look, you need more evidence than this, she says, and Akechi nods. Of course. The more criminal experimentation hasn't even started yet, and his dramatic invitation has already served its cause by allowing him to speak to Wakaba privately. At least he's learnt a few things. Wakaba hadn't trusted Shido fully even when she was safe. She is logical, independent, and intelligent. Even if she doesn't believe Akechi now, he's sure that she's the sort to take caution once the seed of an idea has been planted. It is more than enough for a first meeting, but Akechi has always wanted more. This isn't the alliance he wants. Not yet. I expected this, he admits, chugging his juice down in one go and putting his mask and cap back on. I don't expect you to believe me right away, but if you can continue to humor me, please follow me again. Akechi pays the bill at the counter and leaves. The night is dark now, and the dingy street that the izakaya is in is only lit by the yellow squares of light from various small stalls and shops. Enough people are milling and chattering about that Akechi frowns, before heading into a narrow alleyway blocked by a bin. He moves it to the side when Wakaba follows behind in confusion, her high heels clacking against the ground. This is disgusting, Wakaba grimaces, edging carefully around the bin. I hope you're not lying to me or trying to kidnap me or anything. I've taken self-defense classes before, you know. Her arms are completely devoid of muscle definition. Ah, Akechi smiles. I'll be thankful if you don't use those on me, Ishiki-san. You look like you throw a mean punch. Wakaba snorts at that. Yeah, stop with the insincerity, kid. Just do what you need to do. I'm quite a busy woman, you know. Your hand, please. Akechi nods in acquiescence, his other hand already with the metanav out and mementos tapped into the box. His heartbeat thuds loudly. Nervousness, perhaps. He feels confident about entering the metaverse before Shido because even in his previous life, Shido had never been one of the people who was ever sucked in when Akechi engaged the metanav app. Akechi, similarly, had only ever started up the metanav app when he was alone because of Shido's warnings of what he would do if someone found out his metaverse abilities in his previous life. Judging by the stories the Phantom Thieves had told him, though, all you need sometimes is to loiter around the same area and the metanav will automatically suck you in. An Takamaki and Yusuke Kitagawa had both been more than forthcoming when he asked in his last life. He's banking on that. He's gambling on this. When Wakaba's hands touch his, he taps the app and the world warps around him, and Wakaba Ishiki does not disappear. 3 blinks later, Wakaba has already torn her hand from his, stumbling back down the alleyway the way they came. It's utter silence. The lights are gone, and the world is dimmed into dark and gloomy shadow, and red light edges the buildings into looming spectres. Izakayas, street stalls, and the smell of frying gyoza and ramen have all disappeared. The night has no stars, and somehow the air is more sinister. What the fuck? Wakaba yells, staring. Akechi emerges from the alleyway behind her, his smile unchanged. Stepping around the bin and glancing around the familiar scene, he can't help but sketch a small bow when Wakaba wheels on him. Welcome to the metaverse, Ishiki-san. There are no shadows on the surface, but there are vague bleeding lumps of darkness, crumbling buildings, and rubble that they pass that obviously make Wakaba apprehensive. So Akechi goes on his own casual way towards the closest safe room he remembers, hands in his pockets and humming a little. Even though no shadows live on the surface, safe areas have fewer distortions. Fuck! I stubbed my toe again! Wakaba curses behind him, before glaring at the piece of rubble that she didn't see in the dark and limping quickly behind Akechi. If I knew this is what I was going to be doing, I wouldn't have dressed up, she mumbles darkly, and Akechi nods politely. Well, we've nearly arrived at the safe room, where cognitive distortions will be a little less than usual. We can talk there. I promise it'll be more comfortable, Ishiki-san. Wakaba squints at him in his blasé tone before swallowing what she was going to say and following behind him with a little more force than necessary. Akechi shrugs before continuing to pick his way through the abandoned city, feeling a little nostalgic that he was tramping through the surface of Mementos again in a world without the Phantom Thieves. This place is, once again, his and his alone. Stepping around a pile of brick, Akechi cast his mind back. What had he been doing in his last life at the point in time? Oh yes, he was mooning over his new apartment and gleefully outfitting it with everything he'd always wanted to have. He'd also been looking forward to Shido's next experiment with excitement to prove himself, planning to get into his good graces so his betrayal would hurt. Just like how he'd hurt his mother. Shido, he'd schemed, would regret ever abandoning him as a son. Wow. He chuckles in a little derision, knowing Shido as he does now. Remembering those childish thoughts is actually a little painful. Morgana was right. He really had acted like a child throwing a tantrum. 15, and so stupid. What are you laughing about now, creepy boy? Wakaba asks suspiciously behind him, and Akechi gives her a half shrug. I'm mourning my lost childhood innocence, Ishiki-san. Akechi replies, tone innocent. Pfft, Wakaba snorts unattractively. Tell another joke. You're still a baby. And anyway, Akechi continues, brushing over the topic, I'm hurt by all this continued suspicion, Ishiki-san. I have been nothing but truthful to you, you know? Wakaba rolls her eyes. Well, we've met for something like an hour, and you still haven't told me your name yet, mysterious ex-kun. Oh, right. Akechi blinks. He really hadn't. Forgive my rudeness, Ishiki-san. Akechi turns now, bowing politely. My name is Goro Akechi. It's nice to meet you, despite the circumstances. Akechi. Wakaba immediately waves off the suffix. Tell me we're reaching that room of yours soon, because I need to pick up my daughter in half an hour. In fact, we're right here. Akechi pushes open the door to a veterinarian clinic. Still unlocked because it's still opening hours. And there are flickers of colour here. where it had only been a mix of black and crimson on the outside. It's less oppressive too as a safe room, and Wakaba visibly loses a layer of reserve when she steps in. Now that you've walked through the surface of the metaverse, do you believe my story a little more now? Akechi broaches the topic first. Even if you don't believe that Shido wishes to kill you, I'm at least telling you the truth on this. At least. I'll think about believing you. You'll have to give me some time on your proposal, though, Ishiki replies, quickly settling down on a nearby chair and taking off her heels. Why? Akechi asks, leaning against a table himself. My proposal is quite simple. I feed you information about Shido, you research a few things for me. You obviously have a personal motive in all of this, for one. Wakaba narrows her eyes at him while massaging her sore feet. Though I know Shido can be a bastard sometimes, for certain reasons, I just don't think he'll kill me. Threaten or blackmail maybe, but jump straight to assassination? Wakaba makes a face. Akechi sighs. He'd been hoping he wouldn't need to do this, but there's a surefire way of catching the scientist's attention. What if I change my deal, Ishiki-san? Akechi leans forward, capturing Wakaba's attention again. Your passion and expertise in cognitive science is still mainly theoretical, supported by a combination of clever psychological experimentation and neurochemical reactions. However, Akechi waves his hand around. With me here, you can do experiments live. A whole new way of exploring your field. You can start getting data from the source. Travel a whole parallel dimension of the metaphysical in body. Isn't that exciting? So I propose this. Once every week, I'll protect you while you collect data and do experimentation. All you have to do is agree to research something for me and never tell Shido we're in contact. Wakaba's eyes shine. Now we're talking, she laughs, before pausing. Wait, protect me from what? The streets were pretty empty. Luckily, there's an entrance to a subway station nearby, and they both head downwards. The moment they hit the station level, Akechi's outfit changes into the familiar trappings of Robin Hood. What's that? What did you do to change your clothes? Wakaba asks with enthusiasm, and Akechi deflects. I'll tell you if you agree to my proposal, he replies, in which Wakaba looks put out. It's just the first level, and Akechi shushes Wakaba when they see the first roaming shadow. Her eyes widen, and Akechi is the one who pulls them both back to the surface, to safety. They attack on sight, Akechi explains, and he's honestly prepared to delve into more depth when Wakaba suddenly slaps her hand in his and shakes it strongly. Deal, Akechi. Even if I don't believe Shido's assassinating me or whatnot, I'd be an idiot to miss out on a research opportunity like this. Wakaba's eyes are shining with a pure passion for knowledge. It takes Akechi back a little, to know firsthand how one of his victims had been such an honest lady. What had Shido said when he'd ordered him to kill her? Potential risk because she had blackmail material on her? Facing Wakaba Ishiki now, Akechi knows she would never have compromised her own research this way. The thought is uncomfortable, so Akechi pushes it away. Even if you don't believe me, Ishiki-san, I have to request that we communicate in a way that is undetected by Shido, Akechi insists, and Wakaba shrugs. That's no problem. I'll send you a foolproof way of communicating later. I don't want to scare you away just because we disagree on my choice of sponsors, Research Assistant Kun. Where do you live? Wakaba asks, and Akechi rattles off the address of his dorm. Wakaba nods, and her smile grows large. It's a deal. Crap! If only I didn't have to pick up Futaba from cram school and have a casual dinner date with Sojiro, I could have started immediately. Akechi was going to nod along with her, but he freezes instead because the rest of her sentence fades away alongside time. He's in that space between breaths again. I am thou. Thou art I. Thou hast acquired a new vow. It shall become the wings of rebellion that breaketh thy chains of captivity. With the birth of the fortune persona, I have obtained the winds of blessing that shall lead to freedom and new power. Hey, Akechi, snap out of it! I'm nearly going to be late! Wakaba's snapping her fingers in front of his eyes as Akechi blinks back into awareness. My apologies. To leave, check your phone, Ishiki-san. Akechi leads her through the exiting process and warns her not to enter the metaverse by herself before watching her practically sprint down the street towards what he assumes is Futaba Ishiki's cram school. He has a deal in place, though, and another arcana for all that's worth, and Akechi lets himself feel a modicum of satisfaction at a successful negotiation. At the end of all this, Settling back down in his pink dorm room to do homework is practically relaxing. He spends the rest of the night going through math worksheets with the ease of treating it as a meditative mental exercise. School is banally normal in comparison to the events of yesterday, and when he checks his emails during lunch, he still hasn't received a reply from his internship application. So he lets himself live the life of a normal teenager, for once. He answers all the right questions during class, submits his homework, and receives last week's homework back with full marks. The teacher's full of praises, and his classmates are suitably impressed. It's the perfect day that he's always wished for. All these rich and privileged boys and girls not knowing that one of the bastards they always looked down upon was beating them all. He'd loved that feeling before, of being envied and admired, suppressed snickers when they expressed how much they wanted to be like him. However, the perfect school days he'd planned for himself now feel uncomfortably stifling for some reason. Now it just feels boring. Chatter, laughter, gossip, repeat. Akechi watches them all from his seat by the window, head rested on his hand as he sees people clump together when the teacher gives them a little free time to study. These people were worth nothing, really. Just empty sacks of meat to how important they were to his life. They knew nothing about what he really did in his daily life. Loved him when he was on television, spurned him when he was unpopular, utterly useless to him, as they were apathetic to anything that didn't benefit themselves somehow. Really, he'd prefer one Minato to a whole school full of these sorts of strangers. The world is more beautiful than you think. Akechi pauses in the middle of brushing off the class president. He changes his neutral face to a smile, giving her a quiet "thank you" instead. The class president seems to brighten up and gives him a nod in reply, and her smile lingers even as she continues giving out homework papers. Akechi allows himself to do the same, his smile bland as he looks down at his own paper and thinks nothing. He feels nothing. His own smile is pasted on. There is no warmth, no fledgling happiness at sharing a positive moment with another human being. All he feels is just a vain, empty disappointment. The world is, as ever, detached from his own problems. It's a necessity that made him learn how to read people so well, and when he glances around the sunny classroom, filled with smiling faces, he sees how many just wanted their superficial relationships to validate themselves and nothing more. At the first whiff of hardship, they'd run. Akechi couldn't help the scoff that reached his lips. Friendships. It had always been somewhat of a joke to him. A game. Akira tried to reach you, a sliver of his heart said, and Minato accepted you for everything that you are. It's easy to override that little shred of warmth. What are two people, really, in the thousands in his life? There's a much larger part of him that lives in another moment. A moment where he is too small compared to all the other people milling around, black shadows around his mother's casket. There weren't many people there at her funeral, bare bones as it was. But there was one aged woman who stayed from the beginning to the end, who smoked heavily, even indoors. She puffed away at her cigarette, staring at the photo of his mother when she was still young, before her pregnancy with him had ruined her life. "No tears, kid?" the smoking woman had asked. Akechi, in a small black suit sourced somewhere by social workers, stared blankly at her. She chuckled. "An iced heart even at your age. That's good. It'll protect you. The world ain't that great of a place." The woman finished the cigarette, stepping on the stub with her heel, and immediately pulled another one from her coat pocket. She lit it up without fanfare and dragged in deep, as if that 1 second without a cigarette in her mouth was a moment of torture. "What are you thinking, brat?" Akechi stared forward. His mother's casket. Her face had been bloated with blood since she'd hanged herself. He saw because he was the one who found her. But somehow they made her face look normal again, young and fresh and elegant. Strange, because she had never been elegant in life. She'd preferred the cute aesthetic. It had been her selling point to her customers, that she was small-boned and pretty, and liked dressing up in ribbons and lace and ruffles, liked feeling like the girl she could never be again. Akechi finally opened his mouth to reply to the woman's question. "It's unfair." The woman snorted, smoke coming out of her nostrils. Life's unfair, kid. Akechi frowned, as ferociously as an 8-year-old could. It's unfair! Not completely ice yet, are you? Well, keep that fire burning. A tired tone to her voice. Exhaustion. Akechi had seen this woman with his mother before, standing in contrast to his mother's fluffy aesthetic in dark leathers, both equally pretty on the street corner. Keep it burning, as long as you can, or you'll grow numb. And numbness, the woman had said with a tinge of despair, eyes fixed on his mother's face, is where it all ends. And that's when you disappear. He remembers this despite not fully understanding what she said when he was young, because that woman committed suicide that night, and she lived 3 doors down from Akechi and his mother's flat. Akechi was supposed to be picking up his things that morning with his social worker, but were instead blocked by policemen for a few hours. He doesn't want to disappear, so Akechi looks around the classroom and listens. My father wants to go to Hawaii for summer vacation, one of the girls next to him is saying. I said I didn't want to go. We've gone there every year since I turned 12, but he insisted. Said it's a family tradition, so I can't say no. Oh, that's such a shame, Rena. I wanted to invite you to visit our villa in Italy. It's so beautiful. Look, I'll show you some pictures. It's embarrassing, that's what, a boy is proclaiming in front of him. When we bumped into Kaito-sensei at the supermarket, my ma insisted on dragging me over there to watch as she bowed and thanked her for taking care of me. Ugh, I wanted to die. Another boy laughs loudly from his right. Yeah, but my brother got a new car for his 16th birthday. But when it's my birthday, Dad just gives me permission to host a party wherever I want. I'm tempted to say somewhere like the Grand Ballroom at the Civic Tower just to see him panic. Shogaku's a school for the elite. A private school, if you will, filled with the privileged who don't see it. It's not their fault they can be so unhappy they create their own unhappiness. It's not his fault that he's in a world where unhappy people are so happy when they take from others. He knows. He knows. He has always known. Sitting in the corner of his institution where he could still fit underneath the low table in the corner, watching 15 kids try their hardest to vie for the attention of a caretaker who would go home in relief after their shift. Even so, Akechi listens. He lets it build, lets it burn. And he exists.